good morning again for both of us because Mike continues to drag me out of bed a very ungodly hour so we can record these things.
God
So,
is
welcome to
actually
reality.
up at 4 a.m, so that's really not an ungodly hour. And besides, it's really 7.
It's not.
But
It's
besides the
whatever.
point. So today is
So,
podcast number 53. And last week I did a workshop for our teaching staff on anxiety. Fun topic.
yeah, so we thought after we did our little thing on anxiety a couple weeks ago, kind of an intro to it in some of the things we teach, we thought it would probably be actually really fun for you to hear. Unfortunately, a training by Mike that doesn't include me because most of the time we do trainings together. But we thought we'd give you a little taste of kind of how this goes and what this is like. And quite frankly, I think it'll be really helpful to you because right now there's just a lot of anxious people in our country. So sit tight, enjoy the time, and we hope it. We
This
hope
was
it means
actually a
something to you.
live training, and one of the things Mike and I do when we train is use Pull Everywhere, which people get their cell phones out, they type a code into our system, and then we ask questions that allow them to answer either A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or to type in words or phrases, and it becomes extremely interactive seminar. So even though I'm making comments about get your cell phone out and type in an answer, this was recorded a couple of weeks ago, and who knows how long before you see it. But when we go out and do training together, we really have a lot of fun with this. This is really engaging to the audience.
So, without further ado, here is Mike teaching on anxiety.
We called it an anxiety workshop. Here we go.
Right.
Okay. Let's see if it works them up here. Okay, let's get started. When I was younger, I had a duck as a pet. I loved that duck. It was beautiful, very, very lovely. One morning, I came downstairs and my duck was just laying there. And it wouldn't move no matter what I did to try and help it feel a little better. So I took it to the hospital and to the vet, and I said to the vet, "What's wrong with my duck?" And he said, "I'm sorry to tell you this, but your duck is dead." I said, "Could I have a second opinion?" So he said, sure. He walked to the back of his office and he opened a door and this black Labrador walked in, very intelligent looking dog. And the dog walked over to my duck and sniffed it from beak to feet, shook its head sadly and said, "Oh, doctor said, I'm sorry, your duck is dead." I said, "Could I have a third opinion?" And the doctor said, sure. So he went and he opened the back door of his office and in came this incredibly intelligent cat. The cat walked over to my duck and sniffed it from bill to feet and shook its head sadly. The doctor said, "I'm sorry, your duck is dead." I said, "I guess I have to accept it. Can you give me the bill?" And he said, "Well, it's $1,500. I said, $1,500 to tell me my duck was dead? He said, "Well, if you had accepted my original diagnosis, it would have been $20. But you required a CAT scan and a lab report." We are doing a seminar, an anxiety workshop, recognizing and managing excessive fear. Recognizing it is a key part. Really being able to name what's going on. We're going to be talking a little bit about titling it and understanding in the big picture what anxiety actually is, and in some sense, what it's not. And then what to do about it. How do you manage that level of anxiety that you might be experiencing or working with people that are experiencing anxiety? I'm Dr. Mike Merrill. I wrote a book called Why Do People Act That Way? And what can I do about it? Both of those questions are extremely important. It's available on Amazon. I have 5 copies back there if you're interested in that. Why do people act that way is a question that is so frequently asked about everything. People pull out in front of you when there's space behind you and they just jam their car out into the road and you go, why do people do that? I mean, it just seems so bizarre and inexplicable. But the second question perhaps is even more important than the first question is, what can I do about it? Not what do I have to do about it or what might I do about it, but what can I actually do about it? I'm the lead pastor here at Parma Christian Fellowship Church, and I co-host a podcast called Gripping Reality with my friend on the West Coast, Mike Wilson. In very, very brief, I want to cover the big territory first and show you where I see anxiety coming in the big picture of reality. Mike and I have been colleagues for decades, 35, 36 years. And as we have worked with students, with parents, with staff, with law enforcement, with all kinds of people across the country and even around the world, one of the concepts that we developed to help people understand themselves and be able to put some words to reality that they may not be able to express and even think about, much less resolve. And we came up with this graphic. It goes in clockwise order of perceptions, emotions, motivations, and behaviors. And I'll explain a little bit about this. We're not going to there's so much content I could literally teach for 3 days and we would just be getting into the depth of this. But we see that there are 4 complexes in every human being. They're all over the board in terms of strengths and weaknesses, in terms of intensity, in terms of resilience, in terms of engagement, how they interact with each other. But these four, just being able to come up with some language to capture a concept, which is really quite difficult to understand at times, we put it into this graphic. And the four heads, the way they're blended, is an important part of the conversation. So what I would like you to do is be interactive with me tonight. And the way to do that is to take your phone and to text from your phone to the number 22333. That's the number you're texting to, not a 10-digit number, just about those 5 numbers, 22333. And the text of the message you are sending is Dr. Dr. Myke, M-Y-K-E, M, don't forget the M, 633. Dr. M-Y-K-E, M, 633. And when you do that correctly, it doesn't matter whether you use capitals or not, you'll get a response from the system saying you have logged on to Dr. Myke Merrill and you're ready to go. So go ahead and type yourself in there and see if you can get that message back that says you're logged in. So in order to see if it actually worked or not, I have a practice question for you so that you can answer, and I'll teach you not only how do you give an answer, but how do you undo your answer and change it if you want to. There are 5 kinds of people. There are those people who would be considered dog people. Not that they themselves are a dog, but the animal that they really like the most is a dog. There are people who are cat people. Sometimes they're both, but most people have a preference one to the other. There are some people who are songbird people. There are people who are fowl people. And there are people who don't like living pets at all. They simply want a pet rock. So I'll call them rock people. So my first question is, what kind of person are you? You only can choose one of those 5, and you must choose one of those 5. Pick A, B, C, D, or E based on how you see yourself. And this is how Poll Everywhere works. As each one of you gives an answer, it will change the perspectives in that. 80% of you are dog people, 83% now, and 17 are cat people. There's another feature that I have for this when I'm doing a really large group, and it has the number of respondents, and then it gives all the actual data. We can have all kinds of things. But my system does not track which phone gave which answer. It's important for you to know that. Now, I didn't put a timer on. Sometimes I put timers on so it cuts off and then you can't answer. There is a way to change your answer. So if you want to type in the word undo, U-N-D-O, no space, undo, it will take whatever answer your phone sent in, it will take that off, and then you can pick a different answer. So somebody pick E or C or whatever, anything else. And then you can undo that and put your, 50% of you all picked foul people. So that's how Poll Everywhere works. And when we have a really large group, I've done this with hundreds of people before, and to see the charts go up and down, they have circular charts and the numbers. It's really, really interesting to see how they go. So what I want to do is do a second question. If you need your acnestus scratched, what part of your body is going to get scratched? Is it on your shoulder? Is the acnestus on your feet? Is your acnestus on your private part somewhere? And we're not going to go any further than that. Is it on your back? Or is it on your nose? You need your acnestus scratched, and it might very well be that you just have to guess at an answer. Oh, and this does the actual numbers. 3 of you thought it was on the nose. 2 thought it was on the back. Only 5 of you have answered so far, and it might be 1 or 2 people. There you go. Somebody said shoulder. So that's how the poll everywhere works. What happens is in my system, it will record the graphs, but not who said what. So as we go along, you'll see that that's quite important. The acnestis is actually the part of your back that neither hand can reach. It's that right there. That's called the acnestis. All right. One of the things that I like to do when we're dealing with an issue of this nature is to look at the big scene first. We're talking about anxiety, and sometimes anxiety is extremely intense, and sometimes it's very low key, sometimes just starting, and sometimes it rolls on for a long time. So the concept of anxiety in and of itself is broad territory. But what I want to do is kind of lay out the whole map of the land first so that we can focus on that particular concept. In the way that I teach an understanding of reality, I teach in the complex of perceptions. We have 10 of them. When you're in elementary school, you are taught that there are 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And those are the 5 kind of core senses. And that's true. You pick up the world around you through those 5 senses. But we teach that there are 5 more senses than that. Vestibular is in your inner ear, and it's actually a sense organ that tells you when you're balanced, when you're moving forward or falling backwards, when your body is not stable. So you can be unstable. Your vestibular system says, I got it, I know where I am, I'm balanced or not. So it doesn't always have to be that you're erect. When you're laying down, your vestibular system knows that. The problem is when your vestibular system gets off, you can be laying down but thinking you're standing up. Or you can be leaning forward, but your brain is telling you that you're leaning backwards. And so that becomes a sense organ. Very, very important. The 7th one is called proprioceptive, and it's your skeleton tells you where you are in space. You don't have to do this now, but one of the ways they test for proprioceptive skill that is declining in older adults or anybody is to have you close your eyes, put one hand out with your finger pointing the opposite direction of your hand with your eyes closed, put the other hand out in which your skeleton says, my fingers should touch, and then try and touch them. And you find that most often you're off by an inch or more. Even though your brain is saying, my skeleton is exactly in line, it actually isn't. Your proprioceptive system is not that well defined. But it becomes a real problem when an older person can't lift their feet high enough, but their brain says they are lifting their feet high enough to get up a step. Or even worse, when you're going down and your brain, your body skeletal system is saying, my foot should be on the ground by now, but it's an inch and a half off. And so the proprioceptive system, extremely important for understanding where you are in reality. The 8th system, we say, is actually a perception system, your memory. You'll be able to I have been in this, we helped build this place. I know it's above the ceiling. I know it's behind every door, every wall, everywhere. But some of you might not know exactly what's inside that room, but my memory tells me what's there. So I have a perception of something in other places in this building that you can't have because you have no memory of that being there. So memory is a perception sense of what reality is around you. The 9th one is imagination or creativity, and that is you can imagine something happening without it actually, quote, being real. But for you, it becomes a reality. So imagination or creativity is the 9th sense. And the 10th one is spirituality, the spiritual sense of the heavenly realm, of the presence of God, hearing God's voice, interacting with things that are spiritual is a 10th sense. I've talked with people who make the claim that they're atheists, that they have researched this, they've really thought about it, they've done all the scientific examination, and they have become convinced in their mind there is nothing to the spiritual world. And my response to that is, I have a friend who's colorblind. And if I wear a bright red vest at Christmas time and I say, do you like my bright red vest? And my friend says, gray like everything else. I said, no, this is red. It really is red. Let me testify to the color. Nah, there's no color. I looked, there's nothing to it. So an atheist is a person whose spiritual sense has simply gone inert or doesn't even exist. So the 10 senses combine so that we can have a perception of reality and what is going on in the world and our part in it. The second complex is emotions, and my whole doctoral work was on the concept that there are 5 emotional drivers. I'll talk about that a little bit more completely in just a moment. But the 5 emotions, there's lots of variation between low intensity and high intensity, and we have different words, but as a child begins to grow, Levi has no words for emotions.
Well, I hope this was enjoyable to you. I hope you learned a few things. And next week, we'll be back kind of with our regular schedule of things we get to talk about. We are looking at maybe doing some things that we've taught in the past. We may start next week. I'm not guaranteeing it, with a little topic called "Know Your Canaries." So we'll just kind of leave it at that for now. So I hope
Sounds
this
good.
has been insightful for you. So this is West Coast Mike
East
signing
Coast
off
Mike.
today.
Yep. East Coast Mike saying see you next
Go to
week. Or whenever you happen
yeah,
to watch this.
right, and go to grippingreality.com and you can email us. You can let us all know about what you think, because we would love to dialogue with you. So have a great day.
See ya.